Hi, and welcome to another Dolphin Financial Radio Show. My name's Dan Wendell, and I'll be your host today. We're going to be talking about retirement income. In particular, where is it coming from, or where do people think retirement income is going to come from? We're going to reference a survey that talked to people that aren't yet retired and where they think they're going to get retirement income from. Then we're also going to talk about where they should be thinking about getting their retirement income from, and what some tips are that I have for people that are considering saving for retirement income. So, as usual, I'm going to bring in my trusty sidekick, Tony Shore. There you are, Tony.
Here I am.
Today, we're talking about retirement income. Now, I'm going to reference a survey that we did a show on a few weeks ago, the Transamerica survey. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that.
So I'm in quarantine right now. My kids have contracted COVID. So
Dan.
rather than help them with their math homework, which I just don't know how to do, I started reading some of the surveys that we did in the past. And I found one particular, well, maybe two, but I want to look at one particular chart that I think is just overwhelmingly interesting to look at. I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me, but I'm excited to do it. So how are you doing, Tony? And if I had to ask you what your top two sources of retirement income are going to be when you retire, what would you say they are?
I'm going to say a financial gift from Dan Wendell, number one. That's number one. I plan on...
It's a big one, Wheezy.
I'm going to hit you up for some cash. That's going to be my number one source. No, I would say 401ks and my 401k and my IRA and Social Security. That's three things.
Right. That's about right. Now, for the viewers, you could see my picture in the back. This is Tony's retirement income plan, getting $1 from
everyone I know,
everyone that passes him on the street. So,
why is there a huge hand slapping the back of your head with a dollar bill today, Dan? That's what I want to know.
Oh boy, Tony, it's a family show. Here we go. So, I'm going to talk about the survey in a minute, but these are the sources of income that people talk about with retirement. 401k, 403b, so some sort of employer plan, Social Security, of course, pensions, working. Don't get me started with that yet.
Oh, yeah.
Home equity, inheritance, and other. Okay, so
I forgot about home equity. Yeah.
I'm gonna bring up a chart in a second. We're gonna try this again.
Okay.
I was able to share it last time, but this is the survey I was referencing. We did a show. I'll put it up here. I think it was a few weeks ago, actually.
Yeah.
Living in the COVID-19 pandemic. This was the Transamerica Retirement Survey of Workers, the most recent one. And we talked about, are people really retiring or doing what they say they're going to do in retirement, right?
Right.
So I want to bring up one page or one chart of it. And let me see if I can if I could share my screen. Now, you know, it's always it's always interesting when I try and do these types of things, but
on the fly too. Look at that.
How
Look
about
at
that?
you. Yeah, there it is. Wow.
There it is.
For our viewers, now for our listeners on the radio, they're going to have to look it up. There's where can they go to find
this? Is the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies. So the link will be in the show notes on YouTube if you're a YouTube listener or viewer. But this is page 98 of that report. So what I want to focus on. So at first, I think we talked about this on that previous show. We talked about how people are at different generations have different expectations for where they're going to get their income from.
Yeah.
And I made the point to say, look at, in Generation Z, they only have 12% thinking they're going to get Social Security. And what I didn't realize, but what I'm realizing now is the title, expected primary source of retirement income. Okay.
Primary.
So where's the majority of your retirement income going to come from? And if we look at the bottom, baby boomers, 34%, or the most of the answers, are saying they're getting it from Social Security. Now, we both know, we just did a show on it last week on how Social Security is failing.
Yep.
And we both know that Social Security is not meant to be your primary source of retirement income.
Yeah, definitely
Right?
not.
It was supposed to kind of fill in the gaps, keep food and shelter and just basic clothing necessities on the table. However, for the baby boomers, reality is most of them, or majority, I should say Social Security is their primary, followed right with 401k.
God bless Social Security.
Yeah.
God bless Social Security, right? Right?
Right, yeah. But if we go back to Generation X and then the millennials, then Generation Z, you'll see those that think Social Security is going to be the primary source drops significantly.
Well, and I have one for that too, Dan.
Here's another truth. Social Security is dying.
I'll put the show up right now that we did last week on Social Security going bankrupt. But you're right. So their lack of confidence are suggesting that, hey, Social Security is not going to be a big part of my income now, or is not going to be the primary source. I would argue that as you get older and closer to retirement, you're going to realize that, wait a sec, maybe it is going to be my primary source.
Yeah, that's true.
Another thing I want to point out here is the 401ks or the 403bs, IRAs. You'll see that boomers are using that as their primary source, 31%, but it increases. But you'll see it really jumps up for millennials and Generation Z. So they're the ones saying, my employer funded 401k is a big part. But Generation X, which is the one closest to the boomers, not as much. So I want to talk about that for a second. We got to keep in mind that the boomers, the 401ks didn't really start until the 90s. So the boomers didn't have, they were already, been working for a while. So they didn't have all those years as a millennial or as a 20 and 30-year-old to put into it. Right.
Right.
But Generation X also got burned, right? You said you're Generation X. You got burned by the stock market a couple times.
Yes. Yep. A few times, actually. Yeah. Plus,
2000s, 2008.
Yep.
So
early 2000s and then 2000 and then 2001 and 2008 basically. Just huge crashes. The Great Recession, right? That's what they call it.
Right. Exactly. So the other point I want to make here is if you looked on that chart, you'll see that the 401k is a bigger part as you get older. I mean, as you go further away from retirement, more people are saying my retirement savings, but you also see pensions are going away.
Yeah.
Right? Your Social Security is going the way of the pension. Oh, you always say Social Security is going the way of the dinosaur. No.
Yeah.
Social Security is going the way of Social Security.
Yeah. The pension is going the way of the pension.
The pension.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The pensions are gone. But more baby boomers. So there are baby boomers that had pensions, and 401ks weren't even around for a lot of baby boomers. So they didn't have access to 401ks. It's a relatively new thing. So I think because for the millennials, there's no pensions, but there's 401ks. So they're going to rely more heavily on the 401k. And that probably will be at least half or more than half with Social Security covering the other portion, right?
Absolutely. And I'm going back to the chart now. Can you see it, Tony?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
so
it's there.
You'll see what color is the let's see, pensions are this purple. Yeah. So, so 3% versus 11 in baby boomers for the Gen Z.
Yeah.
So people, they realize pensions are gone.
Yeah.
Social Security's probably gone. And so you figure, okay, 401k, other savings is going up, but they're not, you know what's going up here, Tony? Which really, look at this red one, working. 17% of Gen Z say that their primary source of retirement income is from working. Like,
Yeah.
maybe Gen Z doesn't understand or millennials, 16%, Gen X, 13%, even baby boomers, 7% of their retirement income is from working. So people are saying they're going to work forever. I don't think people get any concept of retirement. I think what's
Yeah.
going on here. These are the people who say they're never going to be able to retire.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people think that. I'm going to, as long as my voice holds out, I'm doing this job. I'll tell you that.
You're going to be like Vincent Price doing like the new Disney rides, the Ghost, and just,
Yeah.
the Michael Jackson videos at the end of your career. You're going to be
Yeah.
doing the new. Yeah.
Sure.
Last thing I want to point out on this chart, Tony, is, inheritance, other, home equity, those are all minuscule for everybody.
Yep.
I think that is going to change. It should change, but we'll see. So,
And that isn't in actuality how much people are using those things in retirement.
Think.
That's what they think they're going to. These are people who think that that's how it's going to work.
Right.
I'd like to see a chart in how it's actually working for most people. And we've talked about that. Social Security is what? 40 to 60% for a lot of people? I forget the average.
Right. But most people take it early.
Yeah.
So, funny you asked, Tony. I think I have. I'm going into. I know I said I wasn't going to do one.
Mm-hmm.
I was only going to do one, but let's do another one.
Okay.
I want to show another chart from the same study. So this is the Transamerica study. One of the things that people don't, what you can't get from this chart is that people, as they get older, their views change, their expectations change. So what people realize is that as you get older, you're saying, oh, Social Security is not going to be part of my life. I don't believe in it. But eventually you get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, Social Security is still here, right? It was fixed. It was fixed back in 2022. Remember when it was fixed by Biden? Remember that? Like we say about Reagan. So
Yeah.
I think people's visions change over time.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I could bring up this other chart, because I think you bring up a good point. Like you say one thing, but what really is happening,
Yeah.
All right, so I don't know if I could do it. Well, I just lost it. Let me do it this way. Okay, so this is the study. I want to go down to here. Can we see that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not that great to see, but let me see if I could do it this way. Okay. What types of savings and investments do you currently have that are specifically for retirement?
Oh, I see.
All right. So most have a bank account. Then you see the 401k, then the IRA, then the brokerage account. So as you go down, you can see baby boomers are the green. So they are the ones with the most bank account and IRA, right? And Generation Z, who are the youngest, have the lowest amount in brokerage and IRA because they're still adding to it, right?
Yes.
Same with the primary residence. This is an interesting one. 38% of boomers say they have primary residence as their savings for retirement.
Interesting.
But you'll see, obviously, Generation Z is going to have the lowest amount because, again, they're youngest. The area that I think is going to change the most is this primary residence. I think that's going to change. I think more and more people are going to use that as a retirement vehicle. And then the health savings account.
Oh, yeah.
The
HSAs. Yeah. Yeah.
Millennials have it more so than Gen Z because, again, age. Millennials have had more time to put into it. Boomers don't have it because they haven't been around. And they're on Medicare, so you can't have an HSA on Medicare.
Right.
So,
and I think Gen Xers, a lot of us are skeptical or don't understand HSAs. I think there's that middle, the later the younger boomers and the older Gen Xers, really HSA is a new thing to them, so they haven't really utilized it. I think that's part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think those are going to change, and that primary residence is a biggie. Because pensions aren't an option on here because that you don't actually have a pension account. But
no,
you'll see that the IRAs, I think, are going to go up, and 401ks. Right now, the biggest is bank accounts, savings, checking, money market CDs.
Yeah. I mean, this graph is a little different than what we were looking, and we're not comparing apples to apples, but it is interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that for the most part, I think people are going to age into retirement, and they're going to change their expectations for where they're investing. So what I want to talk about is a few things that I think will change. And like I said, home equity being one. Most people underestimate or underutilize their equity in their home as part of their retirement income planning. So we did a show on reverse mortgages. I'll put that up here. That's one way to tap into your home equity. With home prices going up and up and up, I think people don't realize how much of their net worth is in their home. It's taboo, right? Oh, that's just my home. But there's a couple ways to tap into it. You could do a reverse mortgage or home equity line of credit, but you could also consider that when you're paying off your mortgage, and let's say you have no debt and then you retire, that is a way of saving for money. That is a way of income planning, because what you're doing is you're eliminating expenses, outflow. You're not necessarily increasing the inflow, you're reducing the outflow, which is the same effect.
Sure.
So by paying off the house, but what people then don't do is make that leap from, wow, I have $400,000 of equity in my home. What's it doing? Can I use it to live the way I want to live? So I think that's going to change, and that I think millennials and Gen Z might be more attuned to that.
Sure. And you mentioned one way to tap into it is reverse mortgage. And when you get into retirement, another way to tap into your home equity and use it for retirement funding, for retirement income, is to downsize.
Downsize, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's say you've got a $400,000 home or $500,000 home, and you're getting ready to retire. You sell it for $500,000 and you buy a Rambler with everything on one level, accessible, that you can stay retired in for a long time for less than half the price. Well, then you have that equity. Yeah. Hopefully you have enough equity in the house that you're going to have extra left over, and you can bank that or invest it, put it into your retirement fund and use it to live off of in retirement, right?
I agree. And the younger generations, from anecdotally I see, rent more, and so they're more fluid, and they're not locked into a location. They're willing to move a lot. So I could see that trend continuing into retirement and not being tethered to a large home equity pool.
Yeah.
And more like, let's go live in, Portugal, right?
Yeah.
Another thing I think is going to change is right now there's an over-reliance on qualified money. So 403B, 401k.
Yeah.
And when you retire, if all your money's in an IRA, everything you take out is going to be taxed. And I think people are getting hit with that. The retirees now, boomers now, are like, damn, I wish I had a Roth. I wish I had some money outside of my IRA where I can plan a little better income-wise to keep taxes down, to get a healthcare subsidy, whatever it might be, to keep my Social Security taxes down as well. So I think people need to focus more on not just the 401k, but maybe putting some in a non-IRA, non-qualified account that grows. And that could be a brokerage account. That could be in real estate. I think
Roth?
Cryptocurrency is going to be that. I think people are going to be doing that. So younger generations will make that.
Like a Roth. You're talking about
Roth.
using stuff like a Roth where it's not qualified.
Well, it's Roth is qualified, but not taxed. So
not taxed.
A different level of tax.
Sure.
So paying capital gains tax instead of ordinary income tax, I think is especially useful. It's useful to have multiple options.
Yeah.
I think the boomers are relying a lot on just the IRA. Passive income, I think this is going to change. So in retirement, creating a passive income. So the thing that bothered me, Tony, and I joke about it, but it's serious for people, is that, I'm going to work until I die. To see 10, 20% of people say my biggest source of income in retirement is going to be working, is an oxymoron, in my opinion. It just shouldn't be that way. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, for some people, they have no choice, right? I think building up a passive income stream might alleviate some of that. So people tend to work because they're afraid they don't have enough. But if they have
Right.
sources of income coming in, like Social Security, pension, which
Mhm.
they don't have, they could maybe get some dividends or real estate income that, all right, let me not work because at least I have this income.
Right.
Pension.
Ah, yes.
We've done shows on this.
Yep.
Build your own. You can build your own. So I think people say, I wish I had a pension. Well, pension, that's great. They could take a portion of their IRA, 401k, or non-qualified money and just buy a guaranteed income stream. Boring, yet stress reducing,
Yeah.
right? So I think that it's going to change because people love the idea of guaranteed income, but they just don't know how to do it or don't want to do it.
Right.
So I think that's going to change, though.
Or there's a
Or
lot of
maybe pensions will come
misconceptions.
back.
Yeah, and there's a lot of misconceptions. Pensions aren't coming back then. That's my opinion.
I think they will in another form, Tony. I think what's going to happen, the legislation is going to allow for more guaranteed income streams and annuities in an employer-sponsored plan.
Ah, okay. Yep. I would agree. I think you're spot on that. That's probably going to happen.
It's not
But
going to
the
be
old
the employer
style pension. Yeah.
right. It's not going to be the old school style 3M,
Yeah.
pension.
See, employers aren't going to go back to spending all that money on their employees. Trust me. Trust me.
But the employee might, or the employer might contribute toward an annuity administered
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yes.
The employee, they share the burden on that.
Yeah, I think that's either already happening in some cases, or there's options, or they're talking about
They're talking
passing
about it.
some
Yeah,
laws.
they're trying to get that going.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Social Security maximization. Biggie. I'm a huge proponent of
That's
this.
huge. Yeah.
We did the last show last week on it. If you haven't seen it, you can watch that. It's about, not thinking Social Security is going to fail, but not making a mistake. Just maximize
Yeah.
it for you.
Yep.
Do you have a deceased spouse? Do you have an ex-spouse? Are you married? Are you single? Like, what do I do differently? And I think focusing on maximizing Social Security is always a good way to start when it comes to retirement income. So I always say this, Tony. This is my little tagline. A successful retirement is about increasing income and decreasing stress, right?
Amen, brother.
If you can't create the income you want, focus on reducing the income you need. And now I'm getting like a little Confucius here, but
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, we looked at these, where people think they're going to get their income from. I didn't like to see working, right? But all right, Dan, you think you're so smart. I can't. I don't get a company match. I just get enough to get by. I'm going to work in retirement. Okay. If you can't increase your income, you just can't, right? Or you choose not to. The only other option is to decrease your income need, to decrease your expenses. So you're going to have to focus on lifestyle. So a combination is usually the best, but like I always say, Tony, the easiest clients to work for are the ones that aren't spending more than they make.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have that lifestyle creep.
Right. Yep. And a lot of us are guilty of spending more than we make. And that's something Americans struggle with, or a lot of people in general, probably. So that's a key right there. But yeah, you've really laid out the different types of retirement income, how you can create income in retirement. And I know this is one of the main fundamental things you help your clients with, is have a plan in place to create income in retirement. And you can talk about it and say, okay, these sound like good ways, but no, you need an actual plan written out that's based on your personal situation, right?
And that helps with stress. Just having the plan reduces the stress.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if it means I don't have enough, well, at least and you're less stressed about it because because ignorance isn't bliss when it comes to retirement income. You don't want to be that person that retires and be like, I can't. But you also don't want to be the person that's working because you think you can't retire when you actually can. I have that happen. You could retire. Why don't you? Well, I didn't think I could. So yeah, getting that plan. And I was referencing that study, that chart. At first, I took first glance was like, oh my goodness, people don't think Social Security is going to be around. but I mistook it. It is the primary source. And to see that the primary source isn't planning to be Social Security is a good thing. So people are
Yeah.
starting to realize this. But my point is, I think the boomers felt the same way when they were young. And then the reality struck and said, wait, I didn't think Social Security was going to be my primary source, but now it is. Wasn't supposed to be that way. So
I think that does happen.
right. So, but don't panic. Come up with a plan. Start thinking about this, and don't get into this rhythm of I'm never going to retire. Because if you think that way, then that's what's going to happen. But if you think
Yeah.
I'm going to retire, how do I do it? Let me build toward it. Then it'll happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Good show today, Dan.